Hey, it's William Merlini from Flowers and Scents with your floral industry buzz. Okay, today we're going to interview Joe Bird from David Austin Roses in the UK. Now, we've all heard about David Austin roses. These are lovely, fragrant, delicate garden type roses that have been appearing all over, and they are quite the rage in the florist business, and consumers love them. And so I figured let's talk to the people at David Austin Roses and find out what they're doing over there that this has become so popular. So, without further ado, Joe Bird from David Austin Roses. Well, Joe Bird from David Austin Roses in the UK. Welcome to Flowers and Scents.
Hi, hi everyone, and hi Willie. Nice to meet you.
So, I wear this hat at all my conventions and all my interviews. I'm not meant to be a cowboy, but it's just, meant to be.
Yeah,
It's my signature. If I don't wear this hat,
it's your brand signature.
yeah, they don't wear this hat, people don't recognize me. So that's
Exactly.
all right. So, David Austin Roses. So, look, you have a long history that we know a lot about, or a little bit about, perhaps. We'd like to know more.
Yeah, of course.
And the first thing people asked me was, okay, well, we talking about David Austin wedding roses or David Austin roses? And it started because I had my neighbor was traveling and he stopped in Texas somewhere and he said, "Oh, do you know about David Austin roses? They have a big facility here." And I'm like, didn't know he was in Texas, but I know they've been around. So tell
Yes,
me about the two different divisions. You have a garden rose and then you have a wedding rose. Yes.
we do. So the brand started with the garden roses. So the roses for the garden to plant. So that's your shrubs or climbers.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Austin, or Mr. A as we called him, started that business. And that introduced a new type of rose into the horticultural industry. And then it was when his son, David Austin Jr., joined in partnership with his dad. And he saw also an opportunity to introduce a cut rose for floristry. And the David Austin cut roses, or David Austin wedding and event roses, was created. And that was back in that breeding program started in the early 1990s. And we've got those two separate rose breeding programs. And that's important because in a garden rose, so a rose plant for the garden, you're looking at certain attributes, and that's the health of the plant and the habit. For a cut rose, whilst you're also looking for that beautiful bloom and fragrance, you also need the logistical capacity, so that ability to be transported around the world, to have the vase life, and to have all those practical needs that the floristry world requires.
Sure.
So they are two separate breeding programs, and we are testing and trialing for two different things to make sure that those varieties for each support what the purpose is. So that, if that helps,
Yeah.
but certainly people ask us many times, "Oh, I've had the Juliet cut rose. I want to buy it to plant in the garden," and we said, "No, that is just a cut rose for floristry, and it wouldn't make a good plant in the garden, not to our standards as a brand and what we want."
Yeah, and I would assume the garden roses are somewhat of the breeding ground for the fresh cut roses because even though they're probably different varieties that have survived, but like I think it said, it took 12 years to get the first one introduced.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the philosophy of the David Austin roses, whether for the plants for the garden or the cut roses, it's all about the beauty of the flower form, the fragrance, but health and disease resistance. And so we're constantly looking at that, and it's all in the breeding process. So we're careful about what we're crossing with, and in terms of the strains that we're creating. And our head of breeding, Carl Bennett, he's been with the company over 30 years, and he's incredible wealth of knowledge. You know, he's looking at breeding lines and the complexities of that. And you know, sometimes it's not the rose that he's going to get this year that might work as a parent plant, but for children further down the line. So it's a fascinating world within rose breeding itself.
Oh, yes. And okay, so you know what I know most about David Austin roses, I have learned from my friend Joey Azout from Alexandra Farms,
Yes.
who at least I think in the U.S. has sort of put your name on the map because he's has taken your roses and gone beyond, I think, and really done some really wonderful things. He's sort of introduced the garden rose, I think, to the industry, at least from my perspective,
Yeah.
because he was pioneering away and bucking the trend. Because the
Yes.
typical problem with a garden rose was it didn't last very long. They weren't designed to be cut, I guess. And he's, you know, the longevity and the fragrance and the stem length and all those things. I've watched Joey over the last 10 years, I guess, since he's been doing this. So that's sort of my introduction to David Austin.
Yes, I mean, incredible what Joey, Alexandra Farms, and our other growers have done for us. Because obviously the rose breeding is just part of the story. And our growers, and in it are the next integral part. So we have a handful of growers. Joey at Alexandra Farms
Right.
is
Rosa Prima in Ecuador.
one. Rosa Prima in Ecuador, Agri Rose in Ecuador,
Okay.
Green Valley Floral in California,
Okay.
and then Tambuzi in Kenya. Now, those growers are incredible in what they've done and why they were chosen. So they were the only David Austin growers in the world. And they were chosen because they are fantastic rose growers in their own right, but they also understand the differences of growing a garden rose, but then on the next level to grow a David Austin garden rose.
Right.
And to also break down those perceptions that garden roses don't last. They don't last maybe as long as a standard hybrid tea rose, but they're for a different purpose. But we're getting 9-10 days vase life out of some of our varieties as well. So we're constantly building on that expertise. But what I wanted to say about our rose growers is that they are absolutely aligned with us, David Austin brand, and our values, because that is so important with our brand. You need to be in tune with each other, and they are as passionate about our product as we are. And so all of those growers, so the Alexandra Farms, the Rosa Prima, they are there with us on our journey and supporting us all the way through. And we are incredibly grateful to them, because it's them who are helping us to send our roses around the world, supplying the floral industry and to floral designers and to as many brides to be as possible who want our roses.
Yeah, well, it's obviously a work in progress because they've didn't last so long in the beginning, and now through breeding and breeding and breeding and rebreeding,
Yeah.
and you have sort of conquered that, which was a huge leap, frankly, because that was sort of the Achilles heel of the garden rose. It was they just, you know, they would open quickly and didn't last very long, but that has changed.
That has changed, and I was only speaking to a florist on Monday, and she was recalling how her patient's roses she used in a wedding, I think in Italy last year. And she said she loves patience, it opens, it holds. And she said it was 40 degrees heat.
Yeah,
I don't know
for
what that
us
translates.
Americans, that's like a 104 or something. I don't know.
104. It's high temperature, it's hot.
It's hot.
It's hot. And she said even after the day after the wedding, and was in Oasis, and it's not in a vase, it's out in the elements. And she said those patients were still holding and looking fantastic. So, these are incredibly beautiful flowers, and yet they hide in a great strength inside, which always just amazes me. They come packaged, and they can have a very long journey
Very long
without
journey.
water.
Yep.
They're tightly packed so they don't get damaged. You put them in water, and then miracles start to happen. And it is great to see. So we go about our business hand in hand with our growers, and they are so important to us, and they will help to support us in every way.
And you have some new varieties, I believe.
We do have we're trialing all the time, and we've got lots. But some of our recent new varieties include, I've got some here actually.
I was hoping you would, so good.
We've got some prepared earlier. So this is Leonora, and she's an absolute beautiful rose, our ivory rose, and we feel that she's really marking her place in the wedding market. She's got a medium fragrance. But what I love about Leonora is she is super consistent. She has got a long vase life, and she opens more fully than this as well. But I quite liked this slightly cupped form. But I refer to her as, if I can say this, the sort of the Chanel rose. She's got that classic elegance.
Yes.
And we talk about our roses as if they're people.
As girls, as I recall.
They are our cut rose girls. They all have their personalities. I've painted a picture of Leonora. She's that Chanel. She's timeless. She's classic, and she's got that Parisian style. And she can be really formal, but then also she can wear boyfriend jeans, cashmere jumper, and she still looks beautiful. And she's just a great wedding rose. Then a completely different personality to Leonora is Eugenie.
A big showy one, right?
Very big showy. So, almost she's the bit of the party girl. She's frilly, she's frothy, she's very effervescent, she's full on showy, not in colour, because she's got this, you can sort of see her blush, peachy buff colouring inside, but she's also got a medium fragrance, but super different in form. And a bit of a show off. And then we've also got Effie, which is more of an apricot, golden sort of amber colours. So again, I would say this is half opened, and she will go more into a flatter rosette. But again, a beautiful golden colour. And I think what it's really good to see is colour coming back into weddings and events. Can you hear that noise? That's one of we've got peacocks on site here at the nursery,
and they're noisy.
And they are noisy. They like to participate in the conversation.
I didn't hear them, but they're like crying babies when you hear them typically.
They are. They've got quite a shrieky noise.
As beautiful as they are, they don't sound very good, but anyway.
Yeah, they're beautiful. Yeah.
And I've always been, I've been in the flower business my whole life, or at least in the round of flower business, and I've watched people for my whole life, and you give anybody a flower of any kind, and they're going to smell it.
Yeah.
Right? The first thing they're going to do is put it to their nose.
You're right.
And
yes.
People would ask me, well, how come these don't smell? And I say, well, okay, because these are cut for the market, for the longevity and everything else. And I get, but how come these roses smell, but they don't last too long? And I said, there's an inverse relationship. The more fragrance, the less longevity they typically have. And that's what you guys have been breeding out of them or into them or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because Mr. Austin said that half of the beauty of a rose was in its fragrance. And he felt when he started on his journey breeding roses in the 1940s, he felt that fragrance had been lost in the rose plants in the garden. It was all about the beauty of the bud and the form. So he wanted to bring fragrance back. And we wanted to get that fragrance into the cut roses. Now, Juliet, one of our most recognizable roses, doesn't have that fragrance. However, it's always a bit of a balancing act. It's a compromise. If we hadn't have introduced Juliet, I think it would have been a shame, because the market would have lost something quite unique in terms of Juliet's colour and form. However, we're always trying to look and bring into that fragrance. And we've got the likes of Patience, which has got the strongest fragrance and good vase life. And within Capability is another rose, great fragrance and good vase life. And we're trialing one at the moment, and it's got great fragrance and really a great vase life. And we are just hoping it gets through the final trials. So it's under wraps at the moment, but that will be a real step forward, because the fragrance is important, a component of the David Austin rose, and wherever possible we try and get that fragrance, but there is always that little bit of compromise in that.
Once you make that leap, then you'll give it a name, right?
Yes, yeah, naming's incredibly difficult, but yes.
I have tried to name roses before, and people have asked me, just come up with names. Come on, come up with names. And way back when I was working for an importer, I said, okay, fragrance. We need fragrance in flowers. So
yeah.
I was buying peppermint oil and lavender oil and putting it in the water. How come it's not sucking up and smelling right? It didn't work, of course. But leave that to the professionals. I have to tell you that one of my most fun things to do is to go to Alexandra Farms and go into his test bed, his test area, his greenhouse.
Yes.
That says, go in there. There's like thousands or hundreds of different varieties. Most of them aren't good, but there's a couple there that are going to be winners. So find them. So it was like fun, just a happy time running through the greenhouse of all these beautiful open roses, where you can sort of see them in their performance. Whether again they turn out to be productive or not is a whole different story. But
absolutely. And also, our growers, we know they get excited with some of the varieties that are coming through, but we have to get them on the journey, getting them go through the logistics chain. How do they perform at the other end of that logistics chain? How do they all open? Have they got good fragrance? Have they got that important vase life? So we keep raising the bar. And the head of rose breeding, Cole Bennett, he began his journey over 30 years ago, as I mentioned, at the age of 18, and he shadowed Mr. Austin. But David Austin Jr., he's now he oversees all the trialing himself. So every day David will go into the test house, smelling, noting down every single day what the rose looks like. And also what we're looking for is an indescribable quality that Mr. Austin used to call grace and charm. And it's that X factor that you can't put your finger on it, but once you see it, you know it. So that's always what we're looking for in our roses, whether the plants for the garden or our cut roses. It's got to have that David Austin look and feel. And that's in the eye of David Austin, the head of rose breeding, and the team there. So we're all looking for that extra special factor. I put it to the likes of that haute couture versus high street. It's that attention to detail, everything we're looking at, and taking it to the next level. And that's why hopefully it's special. I
Yeah,
mean,
I think they're special. And
yeah.
so, Joe, what would be your advice? There's some retailers that are going to be seeing this, of course. And
Yeah.
what would your advice to retailers be when they get these boxes? They open the box and voila, it's full of David Austin beautiful roses. What's next?
Yeah, what's next? So first of all, I think make sure if you're a florist, order early. Don't give a headache to your wholesaler, and I think all the wholesalers will agree. Make sure you're ordering your David Austin roses really early on in the process to give you the wholesaler chance to get their order in and get them delivered to when you need them, particularly during the summer months when demand is really high. So I think all the wholesalers across America and the growers and our growers will be all going thumbs up to that. But once you get the roses, we usually recommend, as a rule of thumb, to receive them on a Tuesday for, say, a Saturday event. So 4 days before your event.
Giving them
Ideally,
time to open and to
do give them time
hydrate.
to open and hydrate. I'm not a florist, but I go through this process and I can do it. I think it's just ensuring that it's that extra bit of care. So when we get them, we cut the stems, we leave the collar on and the cellophane and pop them in the cold store in a hydration solution with water for either overnight or for 6 hours. Then we would then, after that period of time in the cold store, we would then take all the wrapping off, space the stems out in the buckets and let them open at room temperature. And then some will open quicker than others. So, for example, Constance, which is this
That
Constance
lovely
here.
lavender one.
Yeah, so it's very pink, blush pink in this light. It is showing a little bit of more bluey colour, but she's got beautiful pink petals going through her. She opens super quick. So as pretty much as you take the wrapping off, she'll open. And you can just leave her in the cold store and she will hold. So I started to open these last Friday. So all the roses here, I pulled out of the cold store Friday, started to open them. As soon as you feel that they're open, so I don't know whether you can see some of these like Eugenie.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
They will hold. So I think it's be confident
Hmm.
with your roses. You can use temperature. So normal room temperature, they'll open lovely. If it's very hot outside and they've opened, just pop them back in the cooler and they will hold until you're ready to work with them. So and it's always using that flower food or hydration solution, to give them the best possible longevity in the vase, because you're paying a premium price for these roses,
Yep.
and you want to get them at that beautiful peak. I mean, Leonora, I shouldn't have favorites, but Leonora will be.
Again, she's been around a little while. I think I know that
Yeah,
name.
she has, but we feel that there's still she can do. I think Leonora, Eugenie, Effie, they need opening up to the world. I think people know Juliet and Patience, but we've got so many other varieties, and it's great to see how weddings are using colours, bright colours, and we've talking of colour.
You have a brochure. Good. I was
We
going to
have a
ask you about that.
brochure, but I've surprised myself and we as a team that we've used a bright red and pink bouquet on the front of our brochure.
Yes.
It's
Unusual.
like
Yeah.
that for us was a bold move, and when we saw that bouquet designed by a florist in America, Bows and Arrows, we just absolutely fell in love. We thought,
Hmm.
wow, that's incredible. So colours coming back, which is lovely, and we've got that broad spectrum of colours. Always want more colours, and I'm always onto our head of rose breeding. I want more colours, Carl. I want this, I want that.
And hurry up about it.
and hurry up about it. But of course, it's a bit of a timely.
Yeah, well, it takes years. I always like to say growing roses is like making whiskey. You have to be patient.
You have, yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah, whiskey. You're really building in all that time and resource
Yeah.
and testing and trialing. So yeah, it's
All
incredible.
right. Well, Joe, as I told you, these 20 minutes go really quickly when you're
Yes.
buzzing away, and we've covered a lot of ground. So, davidaustinroses.com or you.
Yeah, it's good to just reiterate different things because our garden plants are one website, but for cut roses, it's just davidaustin.com. For our social media, it's at David Austin Wedding Roses.
Okay.
And we would love any of your audience to contact us. If they haven't been in touch with us before, do contact us either via social media or via our email, cutroses@davidaustin.co.uk.
Okay. I'll throw all those up on the on this video so they can see
Yeah.
the URLs and the different places.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd really appreciate that because I know people do get confused and land on the garden site. And also we do have care leaflets and brochures. So if anybody wants anything like that,
I
do
think maybe we should at least for a moment there. So what is the garden rose side? You have a place in Texas. There's a facility, right?
Yes, yeah, we've got so David Austin Roses. We're based here in England. We've got an office in Texas, Tyler, and so that's where our plants for the garden are distributed out across America.
Okay.
And then we also have an office, a small office in Japan, but our plants and also our cut roses are distributed across the world. So, we've got a wide spread. So in the mornings, we're talking to Asia, Japan. In the afternoon and evening, we're talking to America.
Well,
and then everybody else in between.
And mostly that's your market, as you say. The U.S. is sort of your cut flower market, right?
Yeah, America is our primary market for our cut roses. You really took us to heart, you guys did. You understood what we were doing very early on, back in 2004. Pinterest went wild. I think everybody everybody was seeing things on Pinterest and going into florists. So you really took us to heart, and we're always forever grateful for that because you've really then maximized what the David Austin cut roses can do for weddings and events. So thank you.
Wow. Well, you don't have to thank me, but you can thank America. So there you go. I'm a fan, so that's all good. So Joe Bird, thank you for your time today and for coming on Flowers and Scents. I'll get this edited and published next week sometime, and people I think will be interested to see what you have to say.
I hope so. Thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
My pleasure. And you have a great day.
You too.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.